Started in just a minute here. Gonna allow another 30 or 45 seconds for people to join. Okay, so I guess we'll get started now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live Remote Proctor Success Tips information session. We appreciate your interest in becoming either a certified health education specialist known as a CHES or a master certified health education specialist known as the MCHES credential. So we are the National Commission for Health Education Credentialing, also known as NCHEC for short, which is a lot easier to remember. And we are essentially the credentialing body who offers these certification exams. And we also manage the maintenance of your credential as well once you become certified. So this afternoon, we're going to provide an overview of the live remote proctor testing modality, which sometimes you'll hear shortened to the term LRP. And then we're going to be available to you to answer any questions specific to this LRP test option, along with an expert from our test vendor and partner, PSI. So for the purpose of today's webinar, please limit your questions to the LRP process only. Certainly, if you have other types of questions, you can email us or call us after the presentation. I'll provide an email address at the end as well. Before we jump in, I'd like to go over some simple housekeeping to ensure we maximize our time here today. So we're going to do the Q&A at the end of the discussion, and we'll have time to answer all your questions live. But if you want to post your questions as you think of them into the Q&A, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. I'll be monitoring that as well. First up are some introductions of who is leading our discussion about LRP today. First, we have Tanya Cole. She is NCHEC's CHES exam coordinator and office manager. Tanya has been with NCHEC for about 20 years, so she's very knowledgeable about the exam. She reviews pre-screens and applications for eligibility and works closely with our exam test vendor, PSI. And then also joining us today is Elizabeth Ferris. She is PSI's Client Success Director. Elizabeth is also very knowledgeable about the ins and outs of LRP testing and exactly what happens on test day and different types of scenarios. So we'll go ahead and jump in. I'll hand it over to Tanya and she'll begin today's presentation.
So live remote proctoring, or as we refer to as LRP, is a non-invasive test option that allows the exam to be completed from anywhere with the PSI Bridge platform using a personal computer. It's an easy-to-use platform and allows the same standard security procedures as implemented in PSI's Global Test Center network. PSI's Bridge is both Windows and Mac OS compatible. Exam candidates must also use the Google Chrome browser and perform the system compatibility check before registering for an LRP exam appointment. One thing to note is that certain software and devices are not PSI Bridge supported. So please make sure you do your system compatibility check before scheduling your appointment, and we will provide a link in the chat for that. And then once you have scheduled an exam appointment, please use the tutorial exam link to check for administrative rights and software support, which looks for background programs running. To test with LRP, certain requirements must be met to have a successful exam experience. So we're going to be going over the next couple sections in the next few minutes so we want to make sure that you do have a positive testing experience. We're going to be looking at the operating system requirements, the technical requirements, identification requirements, your environment, system compatibility check, and tutorial differences, and then accessing the exam. When booking your exam appointment and choosing remote proctoring, the testing requirements screen is going to appear when you're going to schedule, and you will need to acknowledge the system requirements and administrative access and testing environment before you actually finalize your appointment. And if you can see, there are some links that are incorporated within this screen too when scheduling your appointment. So it does include the system compatibility check and the tutorial test, which again can be used after the appointment is already scheduled. The online system compatibility check is a basic check that checks for the compatibility of operating systems, hardware, for example, your mic and your camera, and internet bandwidth. The online system check does not check for administrative rights. One thing to note is that the online compatibility check is not the same as the tutorial exam that is also used on testing day. So on testing day, your device cannot have any secondary applications or programs running, as this could interfere with a successful launch of your exam. Tablets, Chromebooks, and mobile devices are not authorized for use, and you also cannot use like two screens or have a second monitor. You can just have one screen available. Firewalls and security settings from employer or university issued computers may prevent the PSI Bridge software from operating properly. For an updated system requirements link, please use the link provided on MCHES LRP page, and we'll also put that in the chat too. So to test with LRP, certain technical requirements must be met to have a successful exam experience. As we mentioned in the previous slide, it's extremely important to use a personal laptop or computer because full administrative rights are necessary, and you may not be able to launch your exam if you are using a work or school laptop. So they usually are not recommended, again, because you would not have the full admin rights on the device. So if you are using like a friend or a family's device, please also make sure that you have been granted those rights, or it may prevent you from launching the exam on test day. So the tutorial exam checks for prohibited items, programs, and administrative rights. So you're not able to complete this prior to your scheduling of the exam appointment. You would schedule the exam appointment, and then the link will show up in your scheduled appointment. And you're only able to run the tutorial 3 times per your scheduled appointment. So once you schedule your appointment, you're only able to run it 3 times. The proctor will also perform this same check this day of your exam. So once you log into your LRP appointment, the proctor is going to request to take control of your screen momentarily to do that check. So this is a normal and important process that protects the security of the exam. And again, this check can only be completed 3 times through your scheduled exam appointment, and it can only be used if you have already scheduled your appointment. So PSI recommends that you promote both the system compatibility check and the tutorial exam to help prepare for a live online remote proctored exam. So we do recommend that you definitely take both of those checks. So this is an example of where the actual tutorial test is located after you schedule your appointment. So you log into your scheduled appointment through NCHEC, excuse me, and then you would click the Manage tab. That's at the top of your screen, and then it'll bring you to your appointment, and that launch tutorial test link will show. And then about 15 minutes before your exam is set to start, that launch link at the bottom is going to appear for you to launch your actual test. So if you see right now, it's faded out. So once your test is ready to be launched within 15 minutes, that launch link will appear there. And I just wanted to mention also too, if you log into your exam appointment a half hour or 45 minutes before and do not refresh your page, that launch link will never appear. So you have to refresh your page if you log in really early in order for that launch link to appear. Okay, so the differences between the tutorial exam and the system compatibility check. So the system compatibility check is completed prior to your exam. You would only check, this is really only checking like the camera, the microphone, operating system, and bandwidth. And a word of caution to test takers is that your bandwidth can change from the day of your first systems check to your actual testing day. It could also be affected by others in the household that are using Wi-Fi. So for example, if you have a roommate or a child that is gaming or streaming movies, you could have a lower bandwidth. And then for the tutorial exam, you can only use that after your scheduled appointment. It's going to check for administrative rights and background programs, checks for security programs that ensure your exam will launch. And it also contains practice test questions to show you how the system will actually look for testing. So you also have your photo ID that must match your first and last name that you used on your application. So whatever government ID you're using, the first and last name must match what we have in our system when you registered for the exam. And if you don't, you can just reach out to me and we can update that. So I can update that through PSI because PSI will not allow you to take the exam if the ID and name don't match with what we have in our system. Military IDs cannot be used. A valid passport or unexpired state ID or driver's license will be accepted. So test takers and check-in specialists sometimes struggle with the photo ID capture process during check-in because they are currently tasked with using webcams that tend to have a low resolution or are really difficult to focus. So the result is that documentation artifacts are often difficult to read and may require additional steps to get to that legible artifact. Mobile device cameras are easier to manage for capturing documents and tend to have a higher resolution. So the goal is to leverage those aspects of mobile devices to provide higher quality artifacts to check-in specialists to save time and frustration for all parties. So when you're going to actually schedule your appointment, there's an option there to upload your photo ID during that time. And then once your name and type of ID is entered, additional information will show you how to upload your ID, which is what there's a picture of here. So it'll make it an easier process for check-in when you're going to launch your exam because they already have your ID on file. Key requirements is that the test environment is in a private and quiet area. No interruptions means that it's highly advisable that your room should have a door. No one should enter the room while the test taking is taking place. And please note that you must have the capacity to complete a room scan before launching the exam. So this means that your PC or laptop must have a camera or a webcam attached because they do ask you to scan your entire room. They look at your desk, they look under your desk, around your chair. So you either have to have like a webcam that's attached to a full monitor that you can take off and review the room, or you would use your laptop. You would just have to pick your laptop up and kind of move it around so they can review the room. So accessing your exam on launching test day. So you could go to the launch link that's provided by PSI, which is included within the confirmation email you should have received when you scheduled your actual exam appointment. This can be done again up to 15 minutes prior to your scheduled testing appointment. There's also the launch link that's within your online account, and you can access that through going to your NCHEC account and clicking the schedule, cancel, reschedule. That'll take you right to the PSI login to manage your account and launch your exam. Again, the link will not show if you launch this information 15 minutes prior to your exam time. And again, you should refresh your page or log in and log back out so that link will show. So again, if you're on too early, the link is not just going to refresh the page itself. You're going to have to, like I said, refresh or leave and come back in. And then if your computer has any other applications running, you'll be promoted to close them. If you have not already installed it, you will download and launch the PSI bridge system. So applicants choosing to test at a test center or would like to change, we'll also throw the link in the chat. There's a little video that we can show for testing at a test center. And then we also have this little video for individuals testing for LRP. So we are going to review that now.
Give me a second, I'm gonna bring it up.
Welcome to our short test taker experience video. Designed to help you take your test.
Volume just went down
Volume went down.
all of a sudden.
Okay.
Is
Is it back on?
But do you want me to try to show it, Jess?
Yeah, I think that would be good if it's going in and out, and also maybe paste the link in the chat. I have trouble accessing the chat as well.
Okay, let's see here.
Here.
Do you put it in there, Elizabeth? Okay, so let me try to play this for you guys. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Can you hear it?
No. No.
No?
No.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so I think what we'll do here is in the follow-up email today, I'm going to include all the links we talked about. If someone can paste this into the chat as well, that might be helpful. Tanya, want to stop sharing and I'll start again.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, it's always some sort of technical deal. Let me bring the slide deck back up.
Okay, so we'll put the LRP link in the chat. And there's also, if you go onto NCHEC's website, ncheck.org, and you go under the certification at the top, the exam, there is a whole section on LRP testing, and the webinar or the link for the video is also included in there. Okay, do you want to go to the next screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're not quite sure whether LRP is right for you or anxious about meeting the LRP requirements, please note that you can reschedule your test to be completed at a test center. However, it is recommended that you reschedule as soon as possible or more than 48 hours prior to your scheduled exam, as test center spots will fill up quickly. And you can reschedule your exam appointment by logging into your NCHEC portal, and then clicking on that link that says schedule, reschedule, or cancel. It'll take you right to log in, and you can go to rebook your appointment. And what'll happen is you'll put your zip code in if you choose test site, and it'll bring up all the closest locations to your area. So again, if you're really unsure about the LRP requirements, or if you had issues with like the tutorial exam that background programs are running, or you don't have administrative rights, I would honestly suggest trying to use a testing site because we would not want you to have complications on exam day when you're actually going to launch your exam. Okay,
So I think now we're gonna move into the Q&A section. It looks like some of you have been posting questions into the Q&A. So go ahead, if you have more, go ahead and start posting them in there now. And again, if you have other types of questions, just email us after the presentation. And like I mentioned earlier, you'll be sent a recording of today's presentation and also the links that we spoke of during the presentation and the video as well. If we're unable to get to any of your questions today during the time allotment, we'll reach out to you by email with an answer to your question. And then again, if you have other questions about the exam process that aren't really related to LRP, you can email Tanya at tcole@ncheck.org. It's right here on the screen. And then one other thing is that at the end of today's webinar, we ask that you complete a short survey to help us improve the webinar in the future. The link will be sent to you in that follow-up email as well.
And
Okay.
Jessica, I'm going
Go
to
ahead.
answer there's 2 questions that I'm going to answer live.
Okay.
One is, can you leave to go to the restroom during breaks? And can I have a water bottle or bottles during the exam? So the first question is yes. You can, during your break that is allowed, you can get up and go to the restroom. When you come sit back down and you start your test up again, you'll kind of go through a little mini recheck-in to make sure that you are the same person, somebody else isn't stepping in to take the exam for you. And I do apologize, I can't remember off the top of my head. Tanya, does NCHEC allow water during testing?
we do not.
Okay, so the answer is no. You guys are not able to have a water bottle with you. I would advise though, during that break, if you step out of the room, have your water bottle right there out on the outside of the room so you can kind of take a couple drinks when you're there.
Yeah, and how our break is designed is that you take a first block of questions, which I think is question 1 through 83. And then you and then section 2, block 2 is the break. So you have the option or not the option of taking the break, but I want you to be aware that you cannot go back to the first block of questions before you take your break. So once you go through 1 through 83, you would need to review them, and then you could go on to block 2, which is the break if you'd like to take the break. And then you come back and do the brief little check-in, and then you go to the second block of questions, or the third block, really.
Yeah, so don't be fooled, because it can be a little bit confusing once you're through your section 1. Section 2 is the break, section 3 is the second set of questions. So just be cognizant of that when you're testing, so we don't want anything to happen. Another question I'm happy to answer is Anne had asked, will successful completion of the tutorial test indicate that we have full admin rights on the machine we're using? In theory, yes. However, some things can change between when you're doing your tutorial and the day of the exam. So we will still run through everything again, but you have a very high likelihood of you figuring that out during the tutorial. I will always give advice on the tutorial. Once you've scheduled, you can take the tutorial 3 times between the time of scheduling to up to 120 minutes prior to the exam. If you choose to use all 3, here's my advice on how to best use it. Use it right after scheduling so you have a high-level idea of what's going on with your computer or your laptop. You will then be able to figure out, do I have administrative rights? Yes or no? Or there's some things running in the background that I wasn't sure about, bandwidth, all sorts of things like that. Then the second time, you can go through, once you fix the things you need to fix, you can then retest and make sure you're good to go. The third time can be done the night before or the morning of your exam, as long as, like I said, it's 120 minutes in advance of your exam. So then you know that everything is still exactly the same and you shouldn't have any surprises. That is the advice that we try to give on utilizing those 3 chances during the test tutorial. And then I'm just going to start answering these. Do I need to download anything on my computer for the test to launch? Not in advance. When you do go to launch the exam, you will download the secure browser and the computer will prompt you to do all of that. But there is nothing in advance that you will need to do for that. How do you check if you have administrative rights if you're using a family member's laptop? I am not as technical as that. So I will work with Tanya to get some information to see what we might need to do to help answer that question, so you know where to go into your computer to check on that. Just full disclosure, I am technical, but not that technical.
I would
But
run that tutorial exam
and
because
you
if
can
they
run the
have that
tutorial.
computer, yeah.
Yeah, if you run the tutorial, it will help you, but I can also find out from the team what exactly that looks like. If it's your family member's laptop, chances are there are some sort of administrative rights that there's probably rights that are open, right? Nothing's closed or locked down. Chances are, when it's a personal computer, the things you might need are their login and password, because you would need to put that in if you're trying to do something as the admin. It would prompt you for the username and password information. So that's that it would be my best answer. And then the next is, I heard that it's an issue if we look upwards and away from the screen during the exam. This is how I think and process information. And then I also have an accommodation via disability services. Okay. No problem at all. And again, we will follow all accommodations requests that we have approved. That's not a problem. If you are sitting there, I am also the type where I'm sitting and I'm like typing and I'm thinking and I'm like, oh gosh, what is the answer? Right. And then I kind of look back down. I am the type that does that. In general, if you are quickly like, like super fast, it's not going to be a problem. But if you sit there and stare up at the ceiling, kind of like I'm doing now, that is going to be an issue, because we can't guarantee that crazy things have happened. Somebody hasn't printed answers and like taped it to their ceiling. People find crazy ways to cheat. And so we have to do our best for the security of the exam and for all the test takers. So try to limit what you're doing as much as possible. But I am sure that if you have something to help with what you have going on within your accommodation, we'll do everything we can to meet that without a problem. Can you have scratch paper for LRP? Tanya, what is the rule on your scratch paper?
So they have the whiteboard that
the
is
whiteboard.
integrated directly in the system.
Yeah, so there's a whiteboard integrated into the system. So whenever you need to use it, you can click on that and then it will automatically erase. So that is what you would use for scratch paper instead of a physical piece of paper and a pen. It says, even if we have extended test times, if not during the exam, can I have my purse and water bottles in the room? I will be using a library study room to take the exam. So you could have your purse and your water bottle, let's say by the door, and it is 6 feet away from you, 4 feet, 5 feet away from you. You could technically have all of that information there because it's not easy for you to lean over and to grab. But it does need to be far enough away from you to have your purse and your water bottle in the room, because I do understand that if you are using a study room at a library, why you have that. That's the rule, is it needs to not be within distance of where you're sitting to be able to easily reach down and get something, under your desk or something like that.
And they'll look for that in the room check, I would imagine.
They will look
make
for
sure
that in
it's
the room
clear.
check as
Yeah.
well. So I would put it in the furthest corner you possibly can away from you and from where you're sitting in the study room. That is my advice. Are mints or gum allowed?
No food or drinks.
No food or drinks.
Nope.
When they conduct the room check, what is prohibited? Essentially a lot. Your keyboard is allowed, your mouse is allowed. If you have a thing of pins like I do, right? I always keep one on my desk, move that. If you have bookshelves behind you, cover them, and with just like a sheet or something like that. You can't have notebooks on your desk. You can't have notepads, post-it notes. If you have random post-it notes places, remove them. If you have post-its connected to your monitor, take them off. So it basically needs to be as clean as possible. You can have your mouse pad, obviously your laptop and or screen, and your keyboard. If it's not integrated, you would then have the non-integrated keyboard. But outside of that, you can't have anything on your desk or within grabbing distance of where you're at. It needs to be very clean.
And I did send out that LRP informational email a couple weeks ago to everyone that was scheduled for live remote proctoring. If some of you just scheduled in the last week, you may not have it, and you could reach out to me and I can send it to you. That email has a lot of information. It has pretty much all the information that's in this webinar. It also has links to the Proctor guide. It also has links to the environmental information. So there is, I think, a video on environmental, what your environment should look like too. There's an environmental guide on PSI's website. There's a lot of information under live remote proctoring. And you can, like I said, all the links are in that email. So if you want any of those links, or you want the link to the page where all this information is located, just please reach out to me and I will get that to you. I can take the first one here. Is there any resources for studying for the exam? So NCHEC offers the 8th edition companion guide, which is available on our website, which also has 165 practice testing questions in the back of the book, but you would also have to use your own other outside resources. So like any publications or books you received from your university, you can check with your university or college to see if they have any study groups available. And there also is a suggested reading list on our website under this bookstore, which is the references for the study guide. That could help.
Looks like the
Just
next.
in case.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Tanya. No, go ahead, Tanya.
Just in case if my computer technology fails, can I use another computer to set up quickly with the same model? Not during huh?
So if you are testing and you have a complete technology fail and you are contacting tech support, and let's say you have another computer in the next room, you can, through the help of tech support, utilize a secondary computer, but you're going to have to go through all of the same processes. So it's a yes, no kind of answer, unfortunately. I would advise, if you are going to take this via remote proctoring, we will show the tech support number on screen or email Tanya and ask for that. You will want to have that handy somewhere around, because if you do have any issues, you can call tech support. If your internet freezes, anything like that, you can call them. We do have chat functionality, so you can chat with the proctor and they'll bring in tech support as necessary. But in case something happens with the internet, you need to make a phone call, have that phone number handy, but we also list it out for you.
And we have a question about using eye drops. I haven't heard that one before. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think that is allowed unless accommodations are approved. I'm pretty sure that they would not be.
Correct.
Yeah. Calculator
Yeah, please
integrated with,
explain the calculator situation. Yeah.
yeah, the calculator is also integrated within the exam if it's needed. So if there's a question that needs something that has to do with calculations, there will be a calculator available.
And if you're in a library study room and people walk by, will this be an issue? Or if they happen to say something over speaker intercom?
I'm gonna say yes, because I've had an exam be terminated because somebody walked by a glass window and they were taking it in a library. So I'm going to say it would be an issue. If sometimes what they have you do, honestly, is cover the window with paper, depending on how big the window is. Normally that's what they suggest that you would do.
We've had people use wrapping paper that they
Yeah.
have on hand, old wrapping paper, whatever kind of paper you have, just to cover that glass, so it's not a problem.
Great idea. Here's one. Is there a preference or additional challenges if between Windows versus Apple for MacBook computers?
Nope, not at all.
You just have to use Google Chrome.
Mhm.
Okay. Are we able to use a plug-in mouse for the exam?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I have a feeling this question was from related to a previous question about the person that looks up. How do you get an accommodation for that? So far, this person has extended time, but Tanya, how would they request that sort of
So the accommodation would need to be approved by your physician. So it would need to be an ADA accommodation that your physician said that this is required, an acquired accommodation for testing. And then when you have that documentation, we're a little bit late in the game now. You still may be able to do it, but what's happening is accommodations have to be approved, and then the accommodations department at PSI helps you set your appointment. So some things you're not allowed to do online. So you would need to reach out to PSI and their accommodations department who approved your original accommodations, which I have the phone number if you need it. But they're going to need the additional documentation for you to be allowed to look around the room if you do have it. You may not have to reschedule your appointment because it doesn't have to do with time or anything like that, but this all has to go through PSI's accommodation department.
We have a question about pets. I know we usually get this one every time. So can my dog be in the room? She will bark incessantly if not. She does not know the answers.
She
I
cannot.
feel this in my soul. I do.
Yep.
But unfortunately, I would advise against it and deal with the incessant barking. Unfortunately, the reason being is if for some reason the dog kind of runs by and you can see it in the corner of the screen and you're not sure it's the dog, right? The proctor doesn't know that it's not somebody trying to sneak through, and our security can catch that and think that it's something other than a dog, and we can't risk it. So my advice is, so you don't run into any issues, unfortunately, no. But I do feel you, my bones, like I said. Can you take the exam in your room, like in your bedroom? Absolutely, you may. If we've had people sit on their beds and take the exams, if that is where you're most comfortable or that is the best place for you to do it, absolutely you may. Again, I would clean the area as best I could. If you're going to be sitting there and you have like a bookshelf full of stuff or papers or something, try to cover it with a sheet, things like that. Just to kind of clean it up as much as you can. So during the room scans, you don't run into any issues.
So your test scores come 6 to 8 weeks. Your final scores will come 6 to 8 weeks after after the end of the window. So the end of the window is May 3rd. Then we have to do a statistical analysis on those results, but you will get an immediate preliminary pass-fail. So as soon as you're done with the exam, you will get a preliminary pass-fail, and that will normally never change. But then the hard copy physical results, it takes a few weeks. You mentioned that if we are unsure or hesitant about any of the checks, you recommend going to an in-person testing site rather than have live remote proctoring. If my laptop passes the system compatibility check as well as the tutorial exams, is it a safe bet to do online proctoring? I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes. It's still a bet. The word bet is the operative word in there. It's still a bet, but yes, I do think it's a safe bet. If you're passing consistent compatibility, you're through your 3 tutorials, all you're good with flying colors and nothing has changed, I think it is a safe bet that you're good. So I would feel, if I were you in your shoes, I would feel comfortable going ahead and taking it via remote proctoring.
I do not have access to a testing site or stable internet or quiet space where I am from. We do have testing sites all over the world. So maybe you'd like to contact me personally and I can check that out for you. Stable internet, again, that's something that you would honestly have to search for. You would need to find a location where there's stable internet or a testing site. There's no other option for testing for the exam. But if you want to reach out to me, we can double check sites in your area. If we don't pass the exam in April, what is the cost to retake the exam in October? You are able to take the retake for a reduced $150 fee for the next cycle. And that's only the cycle after. So if you take it in April, the reduced fee is only applicable for the October 2025 exam. So wireless mouse, okay. Yes,
Yep.
I would assume. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is. And then is it okay to plug in your computer or should it stay plugged in? So I'm thinking what you meant was unplug your computer or should it stay plugged in? Because this exam is multiple hours, I would advise keeping it plugged in if at all possible. That's what I would advise, because the worst thing in the world would be you losing power on some fluke and you lose connection and can't finish your exam. I would feel awful. So my advice would be to keep it plugged in. You have to be alone in the exam room. You cannot have a single soul anywhere near you while you're testing.
I've already scheduled the exam. Can I still request an accommodation? So you're going to have to reach out to me. I need to give you the information for the accommodations department. They're probably going to have to cancel your current exam appointment and approve your accommodations and then go through and reschedule your appointment.
Mhm.
So appointments can't be scheduled ahead of time with accommodations. So you would have to, like I said, I have a contact information for the accommodations department, and you could reach out to them and let them know that you have accommodations. And again, what they're most likely going to do is cancel your current appointment, prove your accommodations, and then try to schedule a new appointment with your updated accommodations. I'm taking an exam in my dorm and my desk is next to the wall. What would happen if my neighbor is loud? I don't know, Elizabeth.
You might get a question from the proctor. You might get a question and you can state that it's your neighbor through the wall. Because we've already done the room scan, we know that nobody's in the room with you, right? We know that the door is closed. We know that nobody's in the room with you, that sort of thing. So you should be okay. You might get a question though from the proctor. So just be prepared to try to answer that.
You cannot chew gum while taking the exam. No food or drinks are allowed to be in the exam. How should I go about seeing if there is a testing center after? So, if you go ahead and log into your NCHEC account. So the question is, how do I go about seeing if there's a testing center available after I've already scheduled? So once you log into your NCHEC account and click that schedule, reschedule, cancel, it'll go through a rebook. So if there's a rebook link there, you could go ahead and choose testing site and then it'll ask you to put your zip code in. So once you put the zip code in, it'll give you the closest locations. And it will not rebook your appointment until you click confirm. So it's not gonna actually, even if you're going in there and looking for a site that's close to you, it won't physically rebook you until you actually pick the date, the time, and click confirm. So just so, you know. And if you have any questions, you can always call me or email me, and I can help to look for a place or help to reschedule you, anything that's needed.
Real quick, do you get penalized if there's external noise? Same what I said earlier. Theoretically, no, but you might get questioned in the chat. Like if a dog's barking, it can happen. You can't do anything about it. You might get a question from the proctor, but we do understand to some extent that you can't do anything if somebody's walking down the hallway and talking and the door is closed. You can't control that. And if you're no, having a bed in the background is not a problem if you're testing in your room. Like I said, you can even sit on your bed if you would want to. Some people do. We've seen a lot of things. What if the laptop goes to sleep mode? It shouldn't, but I would continue to just wiggle your mouse. Just keep wiggling your mouse, just to be safe.
You can also set your screen not to go off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can set
Your display settings.
Yeah, delay your time. You are welcome to stretch in your seat as much as you want. If your face is still facing, if you're still facing the camera, it's not a problem. If you need to lean back and you're stretching, you know, moving your arms up, whatever, you can still do that as long as you're continuing to answer the questions facing forward.
During the breaks, are we allowed to leave the room? Yes. So for the break, all of this information about breaks, I think, was also included within some of the emails that were sent. But you can leave, but you just need to let the proctor know that you are leaving. So what you would do is you can only take the break during the break time. So again, there's a section 1, which is like question 1 through 83. You have to look at and review all those questions before going to section 2 or block 2, which is actually the break. The break is optional. But you should let the proctor know that you are going to take your break, and he will put your test in break mode. And then when you come back, you are allowed to leave again. You can come back and start with section block 3, which is actually the second half of the exam.
What if they don't make it back within the 10-minute window for
The
break?
They will
ends.
terminate your exam.
Make it back. Okay.
And early.
Yeah.
If they get termed early, can they reschedule it within the April-May testing window, or do you have to re-register for October? Anya, that's an in-chat question.
Depends on if you had accommodation set up for that. So again, if you quickly look up and look back, they normally will not do anything or terminate the exam. But if it's for a long period of time, it could cause security issues. It would be a security issue, and they will terminate. So if it's because of a security issue, we would not reschedule for May or April. We would retest in October. If it is a issue on the proctor's end that they ended it too quickly, or we can review the DVDs, we can review all the sessions. So in that case, if it was not on the candidate side, I would most likely retest you in April or May. I go through the rescheduling tool and decide to change my mind and keep my online test. Will I have to go through rebooking all over again, or can I just cancel and reschedule and keep it the original test I have booked already? I'm not sure what you're asking.
I kind of do. So if you go ahead and reschedule, let's say, let's say you've tested, let's say you've booked for RP, you decide to rebook for in-person, and then you change your mind again and decide to go back to remote proctoring. That is absolutely fine. That is absolutely your prerogative. You're welcome to do that. Unfortunately, though, we don't hold your original time with the original, what we call modality, either live remote proctoring or in person. So you would reschedule again for whatever way that you want to test. So that original spot might not be open anymore. And watches are not allowed, especially smartwatches. And we can't guarantee today that what somebody has, what doesn't look like a smartwatch, isn't a smartwatch. So I would just not wear a smart watch at all. And no, you cannot have earbuds or music. I would not read the questions out loud. And I totally understand again. I think that is something where if you potentially think that you're going to run into issues, you should talk to your doctor about a potential accommodation, because I'm going to say this. I want everybody to know it's not us trying to be jerky about the rules of live remote proctoring. We have to be very, very, very cognizant, because there are very bad actors out there that try to steal test questions and sell them online all the time. It is a massive industry that's cheating. So we have to be very, very careful. And we cannot guarantee that, understandably, you read the questions quietly, but out loud for your comprehension. It helps you. Totally understand. But we can't guarantee that there's not somebody standing on the outside of the door listening to you read the test questions aloud. So you will be terminated for something like that unless you can get some sort of an accommodation for it, unfortunately.
Day of the test, if there are Wi-Fi issues, will I be able to reschedule in the same testing window? Or possibly at a testing center? So the reason for all the compatibility and the tutorial checks are for this purpose, to make sure that you have good connection. It is the candidate's responsibility to make sure that they have stable Wi-Fi. So if you are kicked out of the exam for some reason, and you're not able to like immediately get back in, like you're on the phone with chat, sometimes they let you back in a minute or something. No, you would most likely not be able to retest in the April cycle.
If I will throw this out though, if I'm in the Midwest, we just had horrible storms last night and early this morning. It happens, right? I know they did in the South a couple of days ago, last week. If you are in an area that something is going on, some act of God, storms, things like that, it does happen, and you feel the need to reschedule because something is going on, let us know immediately. And through things like acts of God, we can bend the rules of rescheduling to get you rescheduled, say maybe at an in-person test center for the next day or two during the window. It depends. It I can't guarantee that, but if there is some situational thing that happens like that, that's my advice.
The test availability dates for April are April 23rd through May 3rd. When you share this recording, could you please share the room requirements? Yes, we could do that. We can actually put the link, Jess, we'll put the link in for the PSI LRP page, and there's so many things on there. The LRP guide, there's the environmental information, there's videos about test sites, and also the LRP LRP testing.
Yeah.
There's a lot
And
on
also,
there.
if you've registered for LRP, go back and check your inbox for a message from, it comes from you, Tanya, right?
Yep.
From Tanya Cole. It has all the information you're looking for with links as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, you can take the exam in one seating without observing the break. When section 1 is over and it goes to section 2, you can essentially say ignore, and you're moving through section 2 onto section 3, which is the second half of the exam. You're welcome to do that.
In order to be able to talk or read out loud, you would need medical documentation of approved ADA accommodations. So you would need documentation from a physician that reading out loud or talking is required for you during testing. And then that has to be approved through PSI and added to your exam appointment. No, so I currently have a PSI exam booked. I just want to see what in-person dates are available right now. If I select the rebook, will my current PSI exam be automatically canceled? It will not. So you can click that rebook link. You can go ahead and click the testing site and put in the zip code. It's going to show you your closest locations and the dates and times. You will not be, that appointment is not confirmed until you actually pick a date, a time, and click the confirm link. So you will not be canceled from the other appointment until the new appointment is technically actually scheduled. We need to reschedule, but cannot before May 3rd. Can we reschedule to October if need be, especially if the exam is terminated when it did not need to be, or acts of gods? If we need to reschedule, but cannot before May 3rd. So if you don't take the exam within the allotted testing time, you're going to be considered a no-show, and there is a $150 fee. So if you're looking to defer to the next exam cycle, I would suggest contacting myself through email.
If you get notifications from your email, you should not be getting those, because during the system checks and everything that we do, everything is turned off. You cannot get to Google, you cannot get into email, notifications should be turned off, everything. But to be safe, I would turn off your notifications on your computer for everything right before your test, just to be safe. Because you will get terminated if an email notification pops up, which means generally that you somehow have your email open, and we will terminate the exam. If Wi-Fi goes out for just a few seconds and comes right back, it will not be terminated. They will do everything they can. You'll usually pop up. Also, let's say it did go out and you couldn't get in and it had been like 2 or 3 minutes. Don't panic. Use that technical support number that I talked about earlier and call technical support and tell them exactly what happened, and they'll work to get you set back up and get back into your session without having an issue of being terminated. We do take into account that sort of thing.
How many times can you rebook your exam appointment? There's no limit from my understanding, and you cannot book less than 2 days. So you have up until 48 hours before your scheduled exam, or 2 days before the exam window opens to schedule your appointment.
They're asking for that tech support number. Tanya, do you want to put, or Tanya and Jess, do you guys want to, or if it might already be in the information you guys have provided?
Yeah, I have to look it up. And chat and a follow-up email. Yeah, we can add that. We'll add the environmental link and the chat support, the tech support in the follow-up email from the webinar. Is that okay, Jess? I'll get that to you.
Yeah, let's just
Okay.
get together after this and
Okay.
get that links iron out that we'll be sending.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll add the technical support number within that email we send out.
Awesome. All right, I guess we're gonna wrap this up. We had a lot of good questions, and appreciate you ladies helping out with this webinar once again. Thank you, everybody, and be looking for that follow-up email with the recording link. It should be arriving tomorrow. Okay.
Thanks all.
Did you end the webinar, Tanya?
I have no idea.